Hi guys, Aaron Dorr here with the Missouri Firearms Coalition with an update for gun owners in Senate District number 26. As you guys all know, the August 2nd primary is rapidly approaching, and this primary is getting white hot. We're getting a lot of questions from our members and other gun owners about this race, and the question you're asking us is, who is the pro-gun fighter in this district? Who's going to be the guy or gal who goes to Jeff City and leads the fight for gun rights? And equally as important, how do we know who we can trust as gun owners? Those are the questions you guys are asking us, and we're going to answer those in tonight's video. Again, District 26, it's these four counties over here outside of St. Louis. We'll kind of call it East Central Missouri. You got Warren County, Franklin, Osage, and some others over there. It's an open seat primary. Dave Schatz is not seeking re-election. And so you have this open seat race featuring at least 5 different candidates. Now, as you see, we have 3 on the board here tonight. There's 3 candidates who are considered viable in this race. One candidate has all but stopped campaigning, and one more, while she's still campaigning, is not really seen as a viable candidate right now. And we're going to focus on these 3, which you guys keep asking us about. Now, as you know, one of the ways that we report to you on where candidates stand is by way of our candidate survey program. We give a survey to every candidate and we ask them, here's the big issues of the day for gun owners. How would you vote on these issues if elected into office? Now, in previous cycles, 2018, 2020, all the rhinos gave us and gave you guys the middle finger and said, we're not going to answer your survey. But after they got shellacked in 2020, the word went out amongst the rhino class in Jefferson City, and they said, look, if you don't do the Missouri Firearms Coalition survey, you're going to get hit in the primary. So instead, do the survey. Don't worry about what you say. Just get it done. Get those guys off your back. And later on, if you got to break your promise down the road in Jeff City, who cares? You're already in office. That's the mindset that the rhinos take right now towards our survey. It's a weakness our survey has. We can't look into somebody's heart, right, and see if they're being sincere or not. But we're always watching. We're always watching to see if what we get on our survey matches the actions and the deeds that we find on these candidates. We're watching their candidate forums. We're going to their forums in some cases. We're watching their websites, their previous votes if they were in office. And what we're going to give you guys is a comprehensive picture on where these 3 candidates stand. And as you're about to find out, even when these rhinos try to trick us, they're going to be held accountable. So let's begin with Nate Tate. Representative Nate Tate. He's a 6-year incumbent in the Missouri State House. And again, we'll tell you right up front, he surveyed with us 100% pro-gun, and we'll acknowledge that for sure. But one of the questions you're always asking us is, who's going to fight for our gun rights? Because let's be honest, I mean, Roy Blunt said he's pro-gun, right? Roy Blunt said he was fighting for gun rights, and he stabbed us all in the back just last month, voting with the radical left on a gun control bill. So how do we know who we can trust and who's going to fight to advance our gun rights? So once we've eyeballed Nate's survey, then we say, well, he's been in office for 6 years. I mean, what's been our involvement with this guy? And here's the thing. Nate Tate, as far as we know, has never sponsored a gun bill. I don't think he's ever even co-sponsored a gun bill. We've never seen him in committee helping us to advance a gun bill. Never heard of him being involved in the fight to push, stop outside groups and trying to attack pro-gun bills. Just basically all the different ways that other lawmakers help us fight for freedom, fight for gun rights. We've never seen Nate Tate do that. And that's a concern, because again, if the goal is to find fighters, well, Nate's had 6 years to fight and he hasn't stepped in the ring yet. That's a concern. It's not the end all. It's not the end of the conversation, but it's a concern. But then we dug deeper and we found out that he refused to co-sponsor Missouri's SAPA law. You guys all know SAPA, Second Amendment Preservation Act. It's the biggest deal, the biggest expansion of gun rights ever here in Missouri to date. We passed it in 2021, and 90 lawmakers co-sponsored that bill. 90. The majority, the vast supermajority of the entire GOP caucus in Jeff City co-sponsored that bill. Only a handful did not. And one of those was Tate. We went back further. We checked our system and we saw how many of our members emailed Representative Tate. Hundreds of them in January and February emailed him last year and said, please co-sponsor this bill. It's the big one. It stops Biden from using our cops to enforce federal gun control. Hundreds of requests. He still refused to co-sponsor that bill. So again, any one of these things by themselves, maybe not conclusive, but there's a pattern here, and it's a concerning pattern. And so for gun owners in this area, you need to ask yourself, you need to ask Tate, are you sincere with that candidate survey? Are you going to fight for gun rights? Because you haven't fought yet in your 6 years in the House. It's a big concern, guys, and you need to ask him about that. Moving on to Ben Brown. Ben Brown. A lot of you guys know Ben Brown, not in office, but a very active grassroots activist on a variety of issues in the district, and he has been for quite some time. Very passionate about guns. So it wasn't a surprise to us when Ben Brown surveyed 100%. He said, on the record, he'd oppose any red flag laws, he'd oppose any gun registries, supports AR-15s, and here's the big one. He said he would oppose any attempt to weaken SAPA law. Now maybe you're asking yourself, now what is it? What is it, Aaron? Tate surveyed, you didn't give him the benefit of the doubt. Ben Brown did. Why does he get the benefit of the doubt? Well, here's the thing. At a recent candidate forum, some MOFC members asked all the candidates, including Ben Brown, they said, what do you think about the Second Amendment? Why do we have it? What is it for? They also said, how would you vote on any effort to weaken or roll back SAPA law here in Missouri? And the answer Ben Brown gave was telling. He said, we don't have gun rights for target shooting. We don't have gun rights for hunting. We have gun rights. We have the Second Amendment for one primary reason: to restrain a government, to keep it from going tyrannical. And that, my friends, is exactly why we have a Second Amendment. Sure, hunting's fun, sport shooting's fun. That's all part of the enjoyment of our Second Amendment rights. But at the end of the day, it is about stopping criminals and tyrants, and that's it. And Ben Brown's answer, it was immediate. He didn't have to pause. He wasn't hemming and hawing. This is a guy who clearly understands why we have a Second Amendment. And so when he says, I'll oppose all of this, I'll defend SAPA, that's a much more believable statement coming from him as a candidate. When it came to SAPA, he said that not only would he defend it with everything he had, if there was any way to make it stronger, he said, I would lead the fight to make SAPA even stronger. Pretty good comments at that forum from Ben Brown. So that's Ben Brown. Good stuff there for gun owners. Finally, we have Bob Jones. Now, Bob Jones is, again, one of those guys, I'm getting the impression where he thought, you know what, just do the survey, get it done, shut him up, and move along. And so he did. He surveyed with us 100%. But the main question, one of the leading questions, if not the first question on our survey is, will you protect SAPA law? It's the hottest issue in Missouri right now in gun politics, and it's the roadmap for freedom that's being used in red states all across the country. The DOJ hates it, the Democrats in Jeff City hate it, and so do the rhinos, and they want to repeal it. They tried this year, they're going to try again. Would you vote to protect or to attack SAPA law? That's the first question. He said he'd be a good vote on his survey. But then, at the same candidate forum, where Ben Brown spoke so strongly about the Second Amendment, the same question was asked to Mr. Jones. And Bob Jones, on record, said there's problems with Missouri's SAPA law and we need to address it. He went on to talk about the big city police chiefs, your Kansas Cities, your St. Louis, your Columbias, these radical Democrat strongholds where their police departments have always opposed the Second Amendment. They've always opposed SAPA law. And they don't like SAPA because it restrains what they can do. Jones said we have to be responsive to what they're telling us. Folks, he all but said he would lead the fight to repeal portions or all of Missouri's SAPA law. What he said at the forum in front of all these people was a complete contradiction to his candidate survey. In other words, Bob Jones lied on his candidate survey. And folks, once a liar, always a liar. So when he says he's going to vote to weaken SAPA, we have to ask, were the rest of his answers on our survey lies? Would he vote to pass red flag laws? Don't forget, just last month in D.C., the feds passed a massive funding bill for red flag gun seizures. Almost $1 billion to be given as bribe money to states that enact red flag laws. The Rhinos in Jeff City want that free money bad. They're going to push for a red flag law. And based on his actions so far, I have no confidence on how Bob Jones would vote on that. How about gun registration? How about AR-15 bans? How about magazine bans? Everything that Bob says on guns has to be held into question now because he lied on the fundamental question of his survey. So when you look at it in context, his statements at that event, his survey results, it seems very likely, very concerning to us, that Bob Jones is a complete gun rights fraud who wants to use gun owners to get himself into office, and then once he's there, he doesn't give a damn what you or I think. That's the concern we have with Bob Jones. You should call him. You should call him. Find him at a forum. Talk to him on the street and say, why would you ever say that you're okay with weakening SAPA? Do you want my vote or not? Why'd you lie in your candidate survey with the Missouri Firearms Coalition? Ask him those questions. If you see Ben Brown, thank this guy. Thank him for his strong survey. Thank him for his strong comments in defense of why we have a Second Amendment. And thank him for answering all of our questions 100% pro-gun. And if you see Nate Tate, you got to ask this guy, why didn't you co-sponsor SAPA law? 90 of your fellow lawmakers did. Why weren't you there? And Nate, if you're telling us you're going to lead the fight for gun rights going forward, why did you never lead on that fight for all of your years in the House? We needed you, and you didn't show up. Those are questions you guys should be asking these candidates, guys, before the August 2nd primary. So, guys, that's our report in this race. Thank you for your time watching this. Help us out. Share the video on social media. Forward it by email. Make sure everyone knows where these three candidates stand. And, guys, join our fight today at www.joinmofc.com.